The night he said it, she didn't argue. That was the part he never understood later. He had been leaning against the kitchen counter, scrolling on his phone, saying it casually, like a preference about coffee or music. "Stop introducing me as your future husband. It makes me look like I settled." The word settled landed heavier than he intended, or maybe exactly as he intended. She watched his reflection in the microwave door, the familiar slope of his shoulders, the ease with which he assumed she would absorb the discomfort and smooth it over. She smiled, small and polite, and said, "Good to know." He didn't look up. That night, after he fell asleep, she opened her laptop and logged into every shared calendar, every guest list, every RSVP she had been added to by virtue of being his fiancé. Engagement party invites, work dinners, weddings, birthdays, brunches. One by one, she removed her name. No announcements. No explanations. Just absence. When she finally closed the laptop, she felt strangely calm, as if she had set something heavy down without realizing how long she'd been carrying it. 2 days later, she woke up alone. He'd left early, distracted and brisk, kissing her cheek like muscle memory. She went to work, answered emails, smiled at colleagues, and ignored the dull buzzing in her phone that came from him not quite noticing yet. That afternoon, she passed a cafe where they'd once talked about seating charts and centerpieces, and she realized how little of that future had ever been shaped by her voice. It had always been assumed. That evening, she went home, cooked for one, and slept deeply. Somewhere across town, he was laughing with friends, unaware that a small but significant space had been cleared beside him, one that would soon echo. The brunch was loud and sunlit, all clinking glasses and overlapping conversations. He arrived late, phone pressed to his ear, joking as he slid into the empty chair reserved for him. Or rather, the chair he assumed was reserved for him. The place card read his name, clean black script on white cardstock. Alone. No, and guest. No familiar name beside it. He frowned, scanning the table. Someone asked where she was. He laughed it off at first, made a joke about her running late, but the laughter thinned quickly. He checked his phone. No messages. No missed calls. He felt heat rise up his neck as understanding crept in, slow and merciless. For the first time, he saw himself the way others might see him, seated alone at a table meant for two, explaining an absence he had caused. Breathing suddenly felt like work. When he confronted her that night, confusion edged into anger. "You embarrassed me," he said, as if that were the deepest harm possible. She listened, really listened, and realized how often she had done that for him without it ever being returned. "You told me not to introduce you as my future husband," she said evenly. "So I stopped." He sputtered, insisting she'd taken it too far, that she'd misunderstood. But she hadn't. She'd understood perfectly. For the first time, she didn't rush to reassure him, didn't soften the truth so it would go down easier. She went to bed early, leaving him mid-sentence, and slept with the door closed. The days that followed shifted something fundamental. He became attentive in a way that felt rehearsed, asking questions he'd never asked before, listening too late. She noticed how his concern centered on perception, what people thought, how things looked, rather than on her feelings. She began spending more time with friends she'd neglected, reclaiming pieces of herself that had quietly gone missing. She laughed more. She spoke freely. When he suggested couples counseling, she surprised them both by saying she'd already booked a solo session. She needed clarity, not compromise. In that quiet office, she said out loud what she'd been afraid to think, that love should not feel like something you have to apologize for. At work, an opportunity arose that would have terrified her months earlier. A promotion, more responsibility, travel. Before, she would have weighed against his schedule, his comfort, his expectations. This time, she accepted without hesitation. When she told him, he congratulated her, then asked how it would affect their plans. She realized how telling that question was. Their plans. Plans she had once shaped herself around. She didn't have an answer for him, and for the first time, she didn't feel obligated to find one. They attended another event together weeks later, a wedding this time. She watched him introduce her, carefully, as his partner, his fiancé, testing the words as if they were fragile. She smiled politely, but something inside her had already shifted. The safety she once felt in the title had been replaced by a clearer understanding of her own worth. When someone asked about the wedding date, she answered honestly. "We're figuring things out." It was the truest thing she could say. The decision didn't come in a dramatic moment. There was no shouting, no slammed doors. It came quietly, on an ordinary evening, when she realized she felt lighter imagining a future alone than one spent shrinking herself to fit beside him. She told him calmly, kindly, that she couldn't continue. He was stunned, insisting he could change, that he hadn't meant what he said. She believed him. That was the problem. Meaning it or not, the words had revealed a truth she couldn't unsee. She packed a bag, then another. He watched, helpless, finally understanding the cost of casual cruelty. Months later, she sat at a different brunch table, sunlight warming her face, surrounded by friends who knew her fully. Her phone buzzed with a calendar reminder for a work trip she was excited about. Someone asked how she was, really. She smiled, unguarded, and answered without hesitation. She was breathing easily. She was introducing herself, finally, on her own terms.